Thank you very much, Program Director, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and honor for me to be part of this prestigious event, Market Access 2021. I know that the whole world, we are grappling with a global pandemic of COVID-19, and our sector as well, agriculture and agro-processing, is also one of the sectors that are actually experiencing a huge challenge with regard to coping with the dynamics of a global pandemic. With regard to the subject matter of the presentation, which is about empowering agriculture and agro-processing. In a nutshell, I will just share with you a bit of a background and also paint a picture with regard to agro-processing status quo in South Africa. So if they've already alluded that I'm actually coming from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, which is a custodian of manufacturing in South Africa. I'm coming from the division which is called Industrial Competitiveness and Growth. So in terms of the background regarding the agriculture and agro-processing in South Africa, we're saying South African agricultural sector provides a host of investment and export opportunities in the number of different subsectors. As a country with different climatic regions, from semi-arid to subtropical, a wide variety of crops, livestock, and game, with a sound transport infrastructure, deep water ports, international airports, long-established cold chains, and a well-developed financial services sector that sets South Africa apart from many of developing economies. And a commitment on the part of government to promoting, developing an efficient and innovative industry to complement this. With regard to agro-processing, we actually work with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, and other departments that are actually having the mandate of agriculture and agro-processing, as well as the state-owned entities, and more importantly, our producers, which include everyone along the value chain. So with regard to the stats, it will tell you that the agro sector in South Africa, it's actually complex, which includes inputs, primary production, processing, which contributes approximately 124 billion rand to South African GDP. And it actually employs more than 451,000 people in the formal sector. So if you look at agro-processing sector, you zoom in terms of food, beverages, and tobacco, which contributes around 131.3 billion to the total manufacturing sales, and also it makes the sector to be the third one, or one of the biggest contributors to manufacturing sector. The food manufacturing industry is largely having a backward and a forward linkages in terms of other sectors. You'll actually link it to logistics, packaging, packing, the marketing. So it actually have a backward and a linkage sector. So now when you actually look at the downstream, we find that there are a lot of companies that are involved in a processing in South Africa, which they are actually the main producer in African region. And you find that in terms of the exports, there are trade and cooperation agreements in place that are available for the players to utilize. For example, we know that we are now into the opening up even a bigger market in Africa under African Continental Free Trade Area, which gives us access to over 26 countries with the population that is actually higher. So in this regard, those trade and cooperation agreements are in place, and we will encourage the producers in the country to utilize them. But also we are welcoming investments. So our sector at large, we welcome foreign direct investment as well as a local investment. So we are having the component within the DTIC, we call it Invest South Africa, where they are putting aside measures in place to actually settle or help the investors to settle in South Africa. So there are various industries that are actually welcoming such kind of developments. And also, if you focus into other, we know that with regards to European Union, it's actually one of our oldest partner in terms of international trade. So if you can look back, we used to have a trade development and cooperation agreement with the EU market. But now we are actually talking about the Economic Partnership Agreement, the EPAS. So as South Africa, you'll know that we are within the customs union, which is South African Customs Union, SACU, where it's our partner countries when it comes to trade negotiations and also leveraging on trade opportunities and investments that are actually going to unlock potentials of the agriculture and agro-processing space. So for us to power or to empower agriculture and agro-processing in the region, we have to look at those industries that will continue to create more opportunities in terms of employment creation and even more linkages, as well as the opportunity of seeing the new companies that are actually entering the value chains. And another important matter is to look at the issue of the compliance to markets. So compliance is actually one of the issues, and also the cost to compliance. Our participating companies, especially the new entrants, they have to look at what markets need. So we normally advise companies to look at the approach where they study the markets and then come backwards in terms of the compliance from the market side. Also, the issue of standards are also key to our sector. And again, we have to look at the issue of funding or financing, which from the DTI side, we are offering the packages of incentives to assist our companies with regard to procuring the manufacturing equipment, which I can say are the CAPEX. Again, there are other institutions, either private or public, that are offering such kind of incentives to assist the investors to increase production and productivity in agriculture and agro-processing space. But one more important issue is the issue of cooperation and collaboration. So with regard to empowering this sector in terms of market access, we need to work together. So we look at the issue of regional value chains. How can we work with our counterparts in other SACU countries, such as Botswana and Lesotho, to engage in those regional value chains, even in other countries of SADC, so that when we knock into other global markets, we are having a comprehensive and competitive product that will be able to compete. Because in the market is non-discriminatory. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what region of the world you come from, but you need to comply with what the market needs. You need to comply with the standards, but also have to be unique as much as possible. So the issue of technology and innovation is also critical. So we need to continue working with the institutions such as Agricultural Research Council, the CSIR, as well as the Department of Science and Innovation, to come up with a more innovative product and services that as a country we can offer into a global market that will assist our products an opportunity, or render them an opportunity to be able to get that demand, to increase the demand, so that we can continue to bolster our export base. But again, it is important that the investors that they are interested to actually come and invest here in South Africa, they are actually engaging our department, Trade, Industry and Competition, which in most countries we are represented. We're having foreign economic representatives. So those foreign economic representatives, they are based in various countries of the world, where they are actually able to help you to package and also help you to enter the South African market in terms of investment. It can be a new investment or an expansion, but we have those foreign economic representatives that are representing our country all over the world. And also, you are free to engage us, especially with regards to agriculture and agro-processing. So I'm going to leave with you my details for further engagement. Program Director, I would like to welcome the comments and questions from the floor regarding the subject matter of actually powering agriculture and agro-processing with regard to market access. Thank you very much,